Ordinance number 30, authorizing the county executive to accept on behalf of the County of Nassau an office to purchase from RXR Mitchell Field Investors, LLC, of certain lease rent revenues generated by certain leases of county-owned real properties located in the Mitchell Field area.
This is basically a securitization in advance, a sale of the lease payments, of which we currently receive $3.6 million a year in exchange for $37.5 million of upfront payment.
I'm noticing in the disclosure report of RexCorp, the purchasers of this, the securitizers, as it were, of this deal, they seem to have 4 ground leases currently with the county in the Mitchell Field area. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
Are any of those leases subject to this purchase here today, the securitization?
All 4 are part of the 18.
And how much of these 4 leases in terms of annual revenues to the county?
For the out of the 3.6 million, the Rex and rent is about 1.8 million a year.
So 50% of the annual revenues that Nassau County realizes from the Mitchell Field leases comes from RexCorp.
Correct.
It sounds to me like this $37 million will be made up simply by RexCorp no longer having to pay rent to Nassau County for the next 30 years. Am I looking at these numbers correctly?
Well, they have internal bookkeeping procedures that I'm not ready to answer that question.
Now, if my math is correct, $1.8 million over 30 years is $54 million worth of rents that we would receive over the next 30 years from RexCorp. I'm doing the simple math here. On these 4 leases, at $1.8 million a year for 30 years, you're talking about $54 million worth of revenue that Nassau County would realize over the next 30 years simply from RexCorp, not inclusive of the other 14 leases that we're effectively giving away here. It just seems to me that this is the deal of the century for RexCorp, that they're buying up 18 leases, absolving themselves of $54 million worth of lease revenues for the next 30 years, and they're getting 14 more leases that they're collecting the revenues on for the next 30 years.
I can't comment further on your point.
I don't think you need to, quite frankly. I mean, this is the deal of a lifetime. I'm astounded by this, that they're going to pay themselves back in no time on this deal, and we are going to be out the balance of the $108 million plus in revenues over the next 30 years. Excuse me, Mr. Becker, I did not interrupt you once today. Well, you're talking loud enough that everyone in this room is hearing this. So, Mr. Schroeder, I'm astounded by this, quite frankly. I mean, the deal.
Excuse me,
you know what, Mr. Becker? I have the floor, and I appreciate, if not your courtesy, at least your silence.
Legislator Wayne, you're asking...
Mr. Becker, did you ever raise a question about the fact that RexCorp has 4 leases and 50% of the revenues that this county receives for the next 30 years?
You're asking